make a point was through the use of force. Now, the recent Georgian crisis has driven a new wedge in the trust that Russia and Europe enjoy. Now, I trust President Medvedev enough to be able to discuss these issues frankly, and I have been very appreciative in the way in which he agreed to dialogue, even though many were those who turned this prospect down. I, however, felt that the Russian army reacted in a disproportionate fashion as compared to the Georgian military intervention. Now, let's say things clearly. There was a Georgian military intervention. That was a mistake. But the Russian army's reaction was disproportionate. Moreover, I do not feel it is acceptable to see Moscow unilaterally recognize the independance of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. In Europe and elsewhere, the questions, the concerns about the real goals and objectives of Russia has led to a very real crisis of confidence. If we were to let this uncertain situation last, it would have a very negative impact on the stability and prosperity of the European continent, but also on a global balance. Now, I believe that the future of Europe and the future of Russia are bound together. It is bound by geography. Very few countries can up sticks and move. We are bound by history, by culture, and also by the growing interdependence of our economies. There are clear complementarities, obvious ones indeed, between Europe and Russia. The Russian market is growing. It is the third largest outlet for European products. And to succeed in modernizing and diversifying its economy, Russia must rely on Europe. It is indeed Russia's largest trading partner and the largest foreign investor. 80% of investments in Russia come from the European Union, and 80% of Russian investments abroad are made in the European Union, and therefore having confrontation between us would be sheer folly. In 2007, Europe invested 10 times more in Russia than China did. And China, incidentally, is another neighbor. Europe purchases a third of its energy from Russia. Russia sells 60% of its oil and gas exports to Russia. Europe, therefore, needs Russia to guarantee its safety of supplies, and Russia requires Europe to have safe markets. It is therefore sensible that Europe and Russia see each other as strategic partners. Now, I, a French official and a representative of the EU nowadays, I'm in charge of these organizations. We have to take decisions together. We have to realize that we are neighbors and have joint strategic interests. Europe and Russia are vital for each other, but they're also vital players on the new multipolar stage. Russia has recovered in a spectacular fashion after the trauma of the 1990s. Russia, once again, is a power that is acknowledged and heard, and which can influence the global situation. Who can hold that against Russia? No one. For its part, the EU is already the largest economic and trading bloc, and it is currently doing all it can to establish stable institutions and acquire the military means that would enable us to become the global player it will become. Now, the global balance of the international system will hinge on the relationship between Russia and Europe and our ability to deal together with the global issues. As we have seen in the Georgian conflict, it was through mediation on the part of the EU that there was an end to hostilities and that the path to negotiated process was embarked upon. Partnership for Europe, between Europe and Russia is a great opportunity for the world, for stability, for prosperity and peace, as was shown in the Caucasus. We therefore have to restore confidence between us. This is at the heart of an ambitious Euro-Russian partnership. Now, how can we do that? Well, first of all, we have to settle the Georgian crisis. European observers are being deployed alongside the OSCE and UN observers. We also have to have the withdrawal of Russian troops, as announced by the Russian president, from Ossetia and Abkhazia. Once we have done that, Europe and Russia will have been true to their word and done what they were meant to do. The crisis started on the 8th of August. Today is the 8th of October, so it's only taken 2 months. People used to say it wasn't clear enough, but maybe it wasn't that bad. We had to, I think I must say that, Dmitry, we had to have this and do this to avoid a worsening of the confidence and trust crisis. What you have said today, the announcement you have made, is vital. On the ground, both parties must now avoid provocation and respect the work of the international observers. We also have to make sure that we have these principles when the negotiations and talks start on the 15th of October in Geneva. To succeed, these talks must bring together all the players and make sure that we agree, understand our positions, and I'm sure we'll discuss this over lunch. Now, to clear the air and dispel the misunderstandings between Europe and Russia, we have to make sure that we, both of us, show a shared yearning to listen, cooperate, and establish a partnership in what we say and what we do. Now, the EU has done things already during the Georgian crisis. I bet that we had to establish a dialogue with Moscow, even though during the crisis many were saying that we shouldn't do so. Well, I'm proud I did. The Union has established a monitoring of its relationship with Russia, but we have maintained dialogue, and I think that the full implementation of the agreements of the 12th of August and 8th of September will give us the possibility to relaunch our negotiations on an ambitious framework agreement. The 4 areas that were discussed in St. Petersburg, and it will make sure that we have great, intense and dense cooperation between us. We will have a common economic and human area established between the EU and Russia. There are indeed complementarities between us. In energy, we have to establish a partnership on transparency, reciprocity, the rule of law, non-discrimination, and ambitious cooperation to promote energy efficiency and the development of novel energies. On investment, we have to make sure that cross-border investments are done in a predictable, clear and stable framework. On trade, we have to establish an enhanced global free trade agreement on the basis of the accession of Russia to the WTO, because this is in both our interests. In the financial field, the current crisis and its fallout in Europe and in Russia clearly illustrates that it is in both our interests to establish converging rules and practices on the regulatory approach, on accounting and monitoring. The President has made proposals, and I must say that I could fully agree to what he has said. Finally, in between our people, we have to make sure that there is a freer movement on the visa issue, so that we can establish an area of freedom of circulation without visas to promote the exchanges between our citizens. After all, what better way to promote our shared values, democracy and human rights? Having a common economic area between Russia and the EU is